Hi, welcome to another video by Belthur Tech. Here I'll be showing you ServiceNow to JIRA integration, right? So at a high level, we are moving incidents based on certain business rules from ServiceNow to JIRA. We use business rules that are there in ServiceNow to trigger the integration execution, and within business rules we'll be using REST API to push the data to JIRA. And once the data has been modified at a particular point in JIRA, whether the incident has been marked as in progress or marked as done, I mean that's a business decision, and this solution can be customized to accommodate whatever business workflow is there in JIRA. But what I'll be showing you is when an incident goes in as a open incident to JIRA, and once the incident has been marked as completed, we'll be pulling the status from JIRA using a REST API via a business rule which is executed on a scheduled job. There is another way that I was looking into that using JIRA Webhooks, but there are some problems with JIRA Webhooks. The way it is triggered and the events for which it is triggered and the data it can carry over the webhook, they're all not easily customizable, and triggering doesn't happen on a conditional basis. It happens always, so it is very random. So I took this approach to pull the status from JIRA. I mean, scheduled job, you can run it anywhere between every 5 seconds to once a day or twice a day. So depending on the business need, you can schedule this job. Now we'll see how to set up the JIRA and the ServiceNow to ensure this solution works. Now we'll see the ServiceNow to JIRA integration. First we'll look at a couple of fields that we need to set up in JIRA for this to work. Okay, we'll go to JIRA, and here we have set up two fields in JIRA called Snow SysID and then Snow Incident ID. Right, you need to go to project settings and add custom fields of single text line fields. That is enough. So once we have added, you need to check the code, get the JIRA all issues and see what is the custom field ID for the snow. This one is SysID, this one is incident ID. Incident ID is custom field 10027 and the snow SysID custom field is 10026. These two field names are important because this is what we'll have to put it back and put it in ServiceNow for that to send the appropriate data to JIRA. Okay, now next we'll take a look at configuration of ServiceNow. Thank you. Okay, now let's take a quick look at how we do the configuration on the ServiceNow side. So this for this demo purposes, I've developed the solution on a Kingston instance, and on the ServiceNow side we need to customize the incident record by adding or updating values. One is for assignment group, we add a flow to JIRA option, and then in the assignment record we'll add two custom fields. One is sent to JIRA, it's a new checkbox, and one is a single line text field called JIRA issue ID. Let's look at ServiceNow to see what gets added. Right, so we'll go to ServiceNow, and to add a new assignment group, you will need to click on new on the incident, and when you get a assignment group lookup, click on that lookup, and in that you'll have a new option option to add a new assignment group. This is where you add a new assignment group. I'm not going to add one because I already have something called Flow to JIRA which I've added, right? And once you click on this configuration form design, it will take you to the form design page where you can add custom fields. Like I mentioned earlier on, the custom field that you need to add is called the JIRA issue ID and the send to JIRA. You can go to field types and select what you want. I've just selected a text field, and one is a text field, one is a string field, and one is a true or a false, because I want this as a checkbox. So if you open this app, you'll see that it's a string field. The name is u underscore JIRA underscore issue ID, and it's read only, because when we send the incident to JIRA, JIRA will send a response back with the issue ID which will store here, and then the send to JIRA is just a checkbox with a boolean value underneath that. Okay, so this is the customization that needs to be done on the ServiceNow side with respect to the fields, but there is still customization on the you have to write the business rule, then you have to write the get and the post message as well. We'll look into that in the next section. Thank you. Hi, so last time we saw how do we add fields to the incident record, and then how do we add a new assignment group value, and we saw that the assignment group value is called flow to JIRA, right, which is here, and it depends on how many assignment group values you want to add, depending on how many teams you have set up to process your incident tickets. Not all incident tickets will be used by one team, so you can make your own assignment groups and redirect them to different teams in JIRA as well. All the rerouting can be done in your business rule, right? So let's go to let's switch over to the slide for a second to see what we have covered so far, right? We have covered customization of incident record. We added a flow to JIRA assignment group. We added a send to JIRA checkbox, and then we added JIRA issue ID, which is a new single line text field. And then we have a business rule which will be triggered on update of assignment group, right? So we have a business rule for post to JIRA which will be triggered after the update of the incident record, and for update, not insert, delete, or even query, right? And filter is assignment group is flow to JIRA. Let's go back to ServiceNow. Let's look at business rules here, right? We'll look at business rule called post to JIRA. And so we have the business rule here. As I mentioned earlier on, that business rules are like database trigger and can be triggered when the business rule can be configured to trigger when the business rule should execute. So it's either after, before, async, or display. Order is I'm not very sure on that. I've given it the default, I haven't changed it. So business rule can also be triggered on insert, update, delete, or query. I've used update. Filter condition should be assignment group is flow to JIRA and or send to JIRA is send to JIRA is false, right? Now let's look at the code. Okay, we go to advanced. Here we'll have to write some JavaScript code for what the business rule need to do. So the business rule will have a default function, right? Function execute rule rule with current and previous. So think of this like your database trigger, which will have inserted and deleted temporary tables, right? So we create a new REST message. I will look at REST messages after this. So we have created a REST message called JIRA Post Get, and we are using the post part of that here. So we will be setting the string parameter for all the parameters in the post message from what we have from the current instance data. So we are setting the description, we are setting the summary, then we are setting the custom field 26 and 27 Snow JIRA SysID. For this we will have to set with what we know of the custom field, right? Incident ID is 27 and SysID is 26. Incident ID is 27 and SysID is 6. So let us verify that once again. Click to get JIRA metadata, click to get JIRA all issues, right? So we got it here, and then this is the Snow SysID. This will be 26, right? SysID is Snow JIRA SysID is 26, and incident ID is what? Incident ID, we gave incident ID IN, it's 27, right? So this is fine, right? Now we'll set the Snow incident ID to the current dot number, Snow SysID to the previous dot SysID, project ID, and the JIRA issue type ID from the JIRA project, which you can get from the metadata, right? And then boolean is true, which is sent to JIRA is true. State is true, that is status, what is the state of this ticket, new, in progress. So we'll set it as in progress because we are assuming that the team will be working in JIRA on this. And then we execute, and then we get the response body back, we get the response code, and in the response body, which comes in JSON format, we get the object ID, which will be the JIRA ticket ID, which will store back in the current JIRA, right? And update the current JIRA incident record, incident current Snow record with the JIRA issue ID here. And then that's it. That's what the business rule is supposed to do. Next we'll look at how the post message is actually built, and post message is completely a parameter based message. So with new business rules, you can customize which project ID the ticket will go to. That is how you can customize how many ever projects you have in JIRA. You can customize the ticket based on which project ID it has to go through, based on the flow ID, flow to JIRA that you set up here in the assignment group. So for different ones, you can have different business rule, or the same business rule you can have a case like condition here to set the different project IDs for which the ticket has to go in JIRA. Hi, so we have seen the business rule post to JIRA, right? We have seen the filter that is set to assignment group and sent to JIRA as false. We have seen how the post message is populated and how we take the response sent from JIRA back to us into assigning it to the current instance ID, which is the JIRA key. Now let's go back and see the REST message, which is the post to JIRA REST message. Now we have this REST message called JIRA Post Get, and I'll open it up. So basically this REST message JIRA Post Get is a wrapper which can contain many HTTP requests for each of the REST verbs. So we have got two verbs here, get and post. First I'll show you how the post works, and then we'll get back to get when we're actually running the scheduled job and getting the status back from JIRA. You see that I've added a endpoint here. This is the API endpoint for putting a post message, post REST request into JIRA. Look at the JIRA API help and you'll figure out how to use that. That's pretty standard and simple. Here we have the authentication type set to basic, and basic auth profile is post JIRA. I'll open it up. Basically you'll have to give your JIRA authentication details here. I have just set it to basic auth profile. You can also set it to OAuth, I'm not, that's a matter for a separate day. I'm not going to show how to set up a OAuth integration. So let's open up Post and see how the Post works. So basically, the name is Post, the HTTP method is Post. I didn't want to name anything different there. So I've got these variables here in the Post. I'll show you where the variables are used, and there is also a given test value, because this Post also comes with a testing wrapper which will allow you to test the Post and the get messages. I'll show you later on how the testing works here. So basically I've got these variables: the description, JIRA issue type ID, JIRA project ID, Snow incident ID, Snow incident field, JIRA field ID, Snow sys ID, Snow sys ID, JIRA field ID, and then the summary. If you remember from the earlier portion of the video where I showed you setting all the parameters, these are the parameters I'm setting. Okay, now let's go back to the HTTP request. The headers that you have to create are accept content type and X Atlassian token with the value no check, and accept and content type will have application/JSON, because that is the data type we are using for the Post. Now look at the query parameters. It's all parameterized query, so you don't have to change anything here. Just this query is enough. Because as I mentioned before, you can change the project ID of the JIRA based on your business parameters. You don't have to change anything here. This is all customized from the business rule. So you'll just execute it like this. You'll execute the Post. If you remember the business rule, right? I'll go back to the business rule. Let it open. Go to advanced and look at the business rule. We are setting the Post, which is the API that we are using and what verb we are using, Post. So, and we set all the parameters here, the Snow data, the JIRA parameters, everything is set here. Nothing on the API side. API side is pretty fixed. All the parameterization happens in the business rule, nothing on the API side. So that is more like just a wrapper. Let's look at the get wrapper now. So get is like another Post wrapper for the get verb like Post. So get has also 3 headers, but there are no query parameters because it's just a get. It's got one parameter, JIRA issue ID, and this JIRA issue ID is used as a parameter in the URL. Remember that we are storing the JIRA issue ID in the incident custom field. We'll be using this to get the JIRA parameters. I'll show you how the test run works here. So I'll just click on test. We have given a sample ID to as 1000, and see we are getting the value from JIRA back here. This is how the testing works. Right? We'll just go back now. This is how the Post method works. So going back to the presentation, so JIRA sends a response with ID key, we save it in the issue ID, and then JIRA Post method does the post of the data to the JIRA, and JIRA custom field will have the Snow incident number and the sys ID, right? We'll actually see this working now. We'll go back to this. We'll go create a new incident now, right? We'll create this incident, short description. I'll just copy this here and paste it here, right? I'll just copy the short. This is the long description, right? I'll set the assignment group to cab approval. I know it will not go there to JIRA now. Caller, yeah, we need a caller here. So I'll save it. It is saved, and see the JIRA issue ID and the send to JIRA is false. Now let me change it to flow to JIRA, and then I will save it again. And once you save it, it's got the JIRA ID, and if you go to the JIRA, you'll see that here coming in here, right? So this is how the ServiceNow to JIRA works. In the next section, we'll see how the reverse works. When I move the ticket from backlog to done, how the it'll get updated from in progress to result. Okay, that is what we are using. Again, we are using a scheduled job there, right? Request, and we get the response back. So now let's look at the JIRA to ServiceNow. Nothing more than that. So let us look at the get wrapper here. So similarly, for the get, the endpoint is taken from the JIRA side. So we issue the JIRA ID here. Okay, now let's look at the JIRA to ServiceNow integration, wherein the data from JIRA, once the ticket has been moved from backlog to done by the team working on that snow ticket in JIRA. Whenever they are done, they'll move into done column. So we have got a scheduled job running in ServiceNow at a predetermined interval. This is also customizable in ServiceNow. You can run it from anywhere from 1 second to so many times in a day. We are calling this business rule job underscore BR underscore JIRA underscore status. I mean, you can call it anything you want. So what does the business rule look like? So we have the business rule. When we need to uncheck all options, because this is executed by a job, not by any of the incident table triggering any activity, right? For update. Filter, no filter. It works when it is triggered by the scheduled job. So what is the business logic of this business rule? We loop through all the incidents which have the send to JIRA flag set to true. We set the JIRA issue ID required for the get message with the JIRA ID stored in the incident record. You remember the parameters that they were there for the get rest message. That JIRA ID is coming from the incident record that we saw get populated when the incident got posted to JIRA. JIRA sends back a response which we update the incident ID, and that is the incident ID that we'll use here, right? We didn't actually see the issue ID and the incident ID in JIRA. Let's go there for a second and see how it looks in the JIRA ticket, right? I'll just open this up. So if you open up the JIRA ticket, right, see this incident ID is the incident that we talked about, and this is the SNOSys ID, that is actual ID in ServiceNow, right? Going back to our presentation, right? So we get the status response from JIRA for JIRA sends when you make a JIRA get request for with the incident ID, issue ID JIRA, it will send the entire data as a JSON response. So we'll check the response, and if the status is done, we'll set the incident status to result. Okay, how do we do that? We issue the get message using the REST message that we have already configured, JIRA Post Get, and this is the message that we'll use, right? Request, and then return the JSON in this format. JIRA returns and response, and we set the response back. Now let us see how this actually works, right? I'll close this. I have the scheduled job. Let me show the scheduled job here. I have the scheduled job running at 30 seconds for the demo purpose. I'll just search for JIRA. The ServiceNow default instance has so many jobs running for its JIRA issue update of the job that we'll be interested in, because this is what we created. So how do you run a business rule from a service job? Is that you need to use this keyword fc script name equal to job underscore br underscore JIRA underscore status. This is the business rule. So if you run it like this, you can execute a business rule within a service job, and I've set it to run at 30-second interval, right? So we'll go back to the incident that we created earlier on. I just want to open so that you can see how the incident gets automatically updated once we set the JIRA ticket to done. So I'm assuming I'm a team member. I'm selected this for development. Once put it for development in progress, I'm working on this. Then I know I'm done, I'll put it as done. Once that is done, let us see the state here. Remember that my scheduled job run every 30 seconds. So this will update the progress once in 30 seconds. So that job is done. You should see this changing very soon into result. Taking some time here. And it is done. See that? You change the state to result. Now let's look at how the business rule is configured, which is run out of a job, to update the status from JIRA back into ServiceNow. Let's go to business rules, and this is our business rule that we are interested in. And as I mentioned, this business rule runs all the time. There are no when to run. You saw that keyword that we are using in our job to run the business rule, right? If you look at when to run, it's pretty open. It works only on update, but there is no before and update, but there are no filter conditions, nor it works on any particular event. So let's look at the code here. So this is the standard boilerplate code that you get when you start coding a normal business rule. So I've just added some log variables so that we can do additional logging if necessary. So we are using a glide record. We are opening an incident using the glide record APIs. So we are adding a query u_boolean2, which is sent to JIRA true, set to true, and status less than 6. 6 is result. If it is anything less than 6, we want to see the value. So we are querying it, and this will get all the incidents which sent to 6 is sent to JIRA is true, but the state is 6, status not result. I mean, you can add your own query here. This just for demo purposes. I'm keeping it simple. So while looping through, while this is the record set, and until next is true, it will loop through. So we are looking at JIRA. We get the JIRA ID, we get the incident ID, and we map the incident ID plus / JIRA issue ID. We are building the URL value, right? And then get the display value for the state, and get the JIRA status with the JIRA issue ID, right? JIRA status is another function that we have written, which will take the issue ID and call the same REST message for get instead of post now. And we set the JIRA issue ID parameter. Remember that get message had only one parameter, which is the JIRA issue ID. We execute the REST message, we get the response back, we send the response, we pass it object, and we check object.fields.status.name. We send it back. We send it back here, status, and if the status is equal to done, we set the close code to solved, worked around, close notes, close from JIRA. We set the state to 6, that is the result, and we update up because of JIRA state change. We put in an update for the logs, and we are done, right? So this is a pretty simple code, not much of business logic in that. I've kept it simple. Of course, your mileage may vary based on your business structuring, how you have set up your teams and whatnot. So implementation of this, even though the whole sequence is pretty straightforward, implementation can get a bit tricky depending on your business conditions that you have, how many teams you have, what kind of tickets you need to raise, what kind of you need to monitor from JIRA. Again, I'm not in favor of polling JIRA to get the status back. If JIRA webhooks works fine, it should be able to notify ServiceNow saying, hey, I'm done. So I'm keeping an eye on the JIRA webhooks as well, and once the webhooks works, probably I'll release a second video to show how to set up the webhooks and use that instead of running a scheduled job from ServiceNow. But what I like about this solution is that all the code is in ServiceNow. Nothing is on the JIRA side except for the two fields that you create. So that the solution is in one place, which is what I like the best about this, right? So what are the prerequisites that you need for this to happen? One is person doing this should have sufficient JavaScript coding experience. They need to understand REST APIs, understand REST APIs in ServiceNow, understand how to create business rules in ServiceNow, to add modified data in the incident table and add custom fields in JIRA. This is all not, and if you know JavaScript and REST APIs in general, it took me about 3 weeks to get the whole solution working. I mean part-time, right? Not 3 weeks full-time. So if somebody is doing it full-time with a fairly good amount of JavaScript knowledge, end-to-end solution you could derive in about a week, depending on how complex your business requirements are, right? This is the permission that are required in ServiceNow, right? You need permission for all of this to make the job easier. It's difficult to set if your organization is big, right, and ServiceNow is managed by some other company. So you need finagling to get all this permissions in ServiceNow. This is the permission you need for JIRA. Thank you.